The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Wednesday, March 29th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. We have more details that are unfolding from the Covenant Christian School shooting that took place in Nashville, Tennessee. The shooter has been described as suffering from mental disorders and underneath the care of a physician. Now, in the state of Tennessee, that is not a impediment to you getting a weapon. And in fact, the state of Tennessee is trying to push it even further so that even more people can get access to weapons, though they may be underneath the supervision of doctors. Now, this is really just part of the conversation about not mental health so much as the fact that this country is so addicted to guns that they want to make sure that everyone, including people who are underneath the supervision of a doctor, can get access to the type of weapons that can do this type of damage. Now, while the conservative movement in this country is pretending as though they actually care about mental health, they're caring about it in a way that could be damaging to the LGBTQIA community. And this is what they're trying to do specifically. They are trying to seize upon the mental health disorders that this individual had, the mass shooter had, and trying to use that as a justification to say that all trans people suffer from mental illness and that they should not be able to get weapons. That's the argument of the day. Also, on the other side of the aisle, we have gearing up the entire backlash machine. Like we predicted that this was going to be a disgusting backlash against the trans community in ways that we cannot even imagine because we're unable to hold white cisgendered men in this country accountable for the 99.8% of mass shootings that they commit. See, when something goes wrong in this country and a white person does it, there is no accountability, especially if it's a white dude. Every now and then you get a white woman held accountable. But in this country, if you are a white cisgendered guy and you go into a church and you shoot up the church, you are not going to then be used as an example of why we should treat all white cisgendered men the same in this country. The conservatives won't have it. White people won't have it. They would scream about reverse racism because they don't believe in accountability at the systemic level. Not when it comes to white people, but they're seeking accountability. They're seeking retribution from the entirety of the LGBTQIA community. They want to bring harm to the trans community as a result of this. They want legal action. They want to ban trans people from being able to get guns. And so they're seeking, the conservative movement is seeking to get retribution from the entirety of the trans community when they will never allow themselves to be held accountable for anything that a single white man does in this country. Ever. Conservatives want systemic accountability for every single group except for themselves. They want black people to be held accountable for every single thing every single black person does. And in fact, Fox News has specialized. They have mastered the art of scouring the entire country to find examples, the worst examples of crime being committed by black people, random black people. And they take that black person and they put them on the headline news of Fox News. They put it out in a tweet. They put it out on a Facebook post. They love to exploit the people in our community who may have done something wrong, and they hold it up as a mirror to suggest that this is indicative of how all black people behave. And this is exactly what's happening now with the trans community, where now if we're going to have a serious conversation about mass shootings, we have to confess that it is a phenomenon of white cisgendered men. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that the conservatives in this country are on an unholy quest, an unholy crusade. Not that there was ever a truly holy crusade to destroy the transgender community. Why? Because they have nothing else to do. They're bored. Hobby Lobby isn't exciting to them anymore. They're not getting their kicks out of just going to the local, the local cheesecake factory or the local Cracker Barrel. You know, they're bored in their sanctuaries. They don't have the Muslims to be afraid of anymore, right? The war on terrorism has dwindled down. And so now that they don't have Muslim people to fearmonger, they had to find a new group. And here they are now attacking the transgender community. And no, they're not serious about actually stopping the next mass shooting. Let's pause here for a second and let's just be real. Our kids, our children in this country, in the United States of America, have had to adjust their entire way of living in order to accommodate for the insatiable need for guns in this country that has been forced upon us by the NRA. It's not the average American. The average American wants to do better on guns. But because of the control of the NRA, our children have to go to school. And when they do, I used to do tornado drills. They're doing mass shooter drills. This is how far gone we are in this country. And so there's not a single conservative. There's not a single person who is lamenting what happened this week, which is a terrible tragedy. My heart goes out to those families. Those families are engaged in a life that should never have had to be. I'm going to take a pause here and just reflect on the fact that this was a tragedy and that anybody who would be cowardly enough to kill a child deserves execution. Anyone who has the nerve to harm a child, not just shoot a child, but to sexually abuse a child, to emotionally, psychologically abuse a child, to physically assault a child, they deserve what they get. And it's a tragedy in this country that we have so many families who can be in the club of parents who lost their children at school. And the reason we live like that is because of the same people who are trying to point to the transgender community right now as the problem. It's because they are so obsessed with guns that they would rather our children have to practice active shooter drills. They would rather our children have to get bulletproof backpacks. And the way they're going to get away with it, the way they're going to keep letting our children get killed is by having half of the country screaming at the LGBTQIA community, blaming and scapegoating trans people. That's how they're going to do it. And it's not just white evangelicals. There's black Christians who have been sucked into this thing too. There's people who just for whatever reason need someone to be hate-filled towards. They need someone to scapegoat. They need someone to look at and say, hey, that person is a sinner and that person is the reason we're going through everything we're going through in this country. When in reality, they are the problem. Conservative evangelicals in this country have everything they want. They are spoiled, rotten. They have wealth. They have privilege. They have power. They have economic power. They have political power. They have homes. They have all of the trappings that they get being inside of the empire of the United States of America and being white privileged Christians. Are you bored with the comfort of your life such that now you have to put all of your energy into hating a group? Well, simply because we know your MO, that's what they have done throughout the entirety of this nation's history. If the evangelical, Christian, nationalist, conservative, that entire cabal, I don't care what you identify as specifically, whether or not you consider yourself a nationalist or a reactionary. I don't care how you parse it. If you are on the side of the equation in this country that is one of two things, you are either completely comfortable with the level of mass shootings that occur, such that you're not going to do anything to change it. I should play this clip of Tim, what's his name? Tim Butcher or whatever his name is from Tennessee. The one that said, we're not going to do anything about it. Tim Burchett, that's him. The Republican who just straight up said, we're not going to do anything about the guns. I'll play it in the next segment. If you're the type of person who's just already given up and said that we're not going to do anything about guns because the NRA is in your pocket, or you are the type of person that's sitting around and you have been waiting for the opportunity to express your hatred towards the trans community because you just need somebody to hate, then neither group is qualified to have a conversation about the concern
about our children. Neither group. Because the people who are harming our children, they're not coming from the trans community. This incident, while tragic, is an isolated incident. It is an anomaly. It literally, by definition, is the outlier. If you want to talk about the people who are killing our children, right-wing, young, white men, they're killing our children. But if you're scapegoating the trans community, that tells me that you don't care about our children. You care about your hate. And if you care about these guns more than anything else, then you know what the Bible says, live by the sword, die by the sword. We need to ban the guns at whatever level possible to make sure that this doesn't happen again. When we come back, we'll listen to the responses from some conservatives. Let's listen to them talk and listen to how callously they don't really care about our children.
Three precious little kids lost their lives, and I believe 3 adults, I believe it. And the shooter, of course, lost their life too. So it's a horrible, horrible situation. And we're not going to fix it. Criminals are going to be criminals. And my daddy fought in the Second World War, fought in the Pacific, fought the Japanese. And he told me, he said, buddy, he said, if somebody wants to take you out and doesn't mind losing their life, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it.
That is Congressman Tim Burchett from the 2nd Congressional District of Tennessee. And he slipped up and just said the quiet part out loud. We're not going to fix this. Now, this guy represents perfectly what I'm talking about. He is the type of person who is so committed to the NRA that he's just going to come out here and say he's not going to fix it. But then simultaneously, he is using all of his energy that he can to attack the trans community, the LGBTQI community. In this case, actually, he's coming after the drag community because, to them, it's all the same. If you dress up in drag, then you are trans, which anyway, they know better than that because George Santos, right? He's saying he's not trans. He dressed up as a drag queen. But anyway, I digress. And I know that that's just part of the ploy. The ploy is to reduce and minimize any distinctions amongst these groups and so that you can willingly and freely attack all of them. Listen to the same congressman who just got through saying we're not going to do anything about these mass shootings. Listen to the kind of conviction that he talks with when he talks about drag shows.
A grown man dressed up like a woman should not be rubbing his crotch in front of a little child. That is ridiculous. Good on Governor Bill Lee and our Tennessee legislature. The law goes into effect on July 1st. And dadgummit, we don't put up with that crap in Tennessee, and we shouldn't. And the rest of the country should follow suit. This is wrong, as wrong as it can be.
Is that the same guy? No, for real. Is this the same guy right here?
We're not going to fix it. Criminals are going to be criminals, and my daddy fought in the Second World War.
Nobody care about your daddy. Get out of here with this mess. Is this the same guy who talked with all that fire against the trans community? See, it perfectly merges together when you look at this juxtaposition, this contrast that I'm trying to get painted in your head of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who care so little about our children that they will continue to allow them to be gunned down every single year and won't do anything about it. But they want to pretend as though they are so enraged by drag shows. And now they are going to get a good portion of this country, including some black folks that I know, who are going to side with them, this guy who doesn't care about your children. The same guy. Now, if I really dig into it, like I want some of these black Christians to realize who these white Christian devils are, right? These are the same people who are trying to ban critical race theory, trying to ban books about black history. This is what we're dealing with. And they're going to have you siding with them against the trans community because now it's like, oh, the Christian community is under attack by the trans terrorists was the actual headline on Tucker Carlson last night. But they don't really care about your children. They barely care about their own children because they happily and readily sent them out into this pandemic. But at least Tim Burchett, listen, he cares about his children enough not to send them to public school because he knows how dangerous it is.
What should be done to protect people like your little girl from being safe at school?
Well, we homeschool her, but that's our decision. Some people don't have that option, and frankly, some people don't need to do it. I mean, they don't have to. It just suited our needs much better.
Literal zero regard for anyone else's children except for his own. I don't want to hear a single thing from a person who's crying about morality, crying about the children. I believe the children are our future. No, you don't. You're letting them get gunned down in these schools indiscriminately because you support the NRA all over the lives of our children. I don't want to hear about from a single religious person who is bemoaning the existence of trans people, because until the church addresses the level of sexual assault and molestation that occurs in its ranks, I'm talking to you, Southern Baptist Church, talking to you, Catholic Church. I'm talking to you, every single denomination that turns a blind eye to the pedophiles that they know are in their sanctuary. Sometimes it's their pastors, and these churches are protecting them. I don't want to hear from a single conservative politician when we know full well you have abdicated your responsibility for the concern of our children because you would rather get your check from the NRA. Listen to this clown, Tim Burchett, as he says more.
Do you think there's any role for Congress to play in reaction to this tragedy?
I don't see any real role that we could do other than mess things up, honestly, because of the situation. It's like I said, I don't think a criminal's going to stop from guns. You can print them out on the computer now, 3D printing, and there's really, I don't think you're going to stop the gun violence. I think you've got to change people's hearts. As a Christian, as we talk about in the church, and I've said this many times, I think we really need revival in this country.
We need revival from your type of Christianity that will sit back and give thoughts and prayers, but won't lift a finger when you literally have the power to enact legislation to save lives. Your type of faith, Tim Burchett, is the one that says, write me my check, NRA. We'll be back after this. Elon Musk. Elon Musk is doing everything he possibly can to get us to buy Twitter Blue. He has kicked us off of two-step verification, where you get a text message to confirm that you're logging in to Twitter or to any other platform. He removed that, and the only way you can get access to that is if you now subscribe for $8 a month or $7 a month. I forgot what the price is, to get access to it for Twitter Blue. That's because he's losing all kinds of money. He really thought more highly of himself than he should have. Elon Musk is now valuing Twitter at $20 billion. The billionaire bought the social media company for $44 billion in October and took it private. This is according to the New York Times. Elon Musk said Twitter is now worth about $20 billion. According to an email he sent the company employees on Friday, a significant drop from the $44 billion he paid to buy the social network on in October rather. The email, which was viewed by the New York Times, was sent to employees to announce a new stock compensation program. In it, Mr. Musk warned workers that Twitter remained in a precarious financial position and, at one point, had been 4 months away from running out of money. He said radical changes at the company, including mass layoffs and cost cutting, were necessary to avoid bankruptcy and streamline operations. Well, that's great that he is categorizing it that way. But the truth of the matter is there was a mass exodus of their advertisers in the aftermath of Elon Musk bringing back the most racist, xenophobic, anti-Semitic bigots that he could possibly bring. He unleashed the hounds of the Klansman hell onto the entirety of the internet, and quite a few advertisers pulled out. Now he is in a position where he's trying to force everyone into purchasing Twitter Blue, such to the point where now he is going to only allow people who are subscribed to Twitter Blue beginning on April 15th. He tweeted out that those are the only people who will show up in the For You tab. Now, mind you, the For You tab is now how they divide Twitter For You and then / who you're following. If you want to hear voices from people that you're following, you have to only hit who you're following. The For You tab is the algorithmically generated. I'm sure the other tab is algorithmically generated, but this one is particularly algorithmically generated to bring as many conservative voices to you as possible. There's just no question about that. And when the research finally comes out, we're going to see that there was probably a 500% increase in conservative reach in the For You tab. And this is the same tab that Elon Musk is trying to force everyone to purchase Twitter Blue around, because if you want to be seen, you've got to give Elon Musk $7 a month or $8 a month, whatever the price is now for Twitter Blue. I don't think that he actually has a plan. I think that he is still winging it. I think with the devaluation of the company, he's using that as a justification. Clearly, it's in the article we read. That's merely a justification for all of the types of draconian cuts that he's making and the changes that he's making. I'm not going to say that Twitter was working fine before he purchased it. I will say, obviously we know that those of you who follow, not everyone, and it's not obvious, but those of you who follow Twitter before Elon Musk purchased it, you realize that they had not a single year profit. Every year they operated at a loss. But such is the case with capitalism. I mean, honestly, there's quite a few companies who operate at a loss and still go public and then grow from there, right? There's a lot of different models that these venture capitalists have been able to find ways of generating a profit in the long run. So a company running in the negative in terms of profit margins for some years, it's not unheard of. But what Twitter is what Twitter is going through right now with the loss of ad revenue, right? Their primary source of income, with the scraping of the bottom of the barrel, trying to get people to become subscribers by blocking all of the features that made Twitter good in the first place. I mean, Twitter wasn't working perfectly before. They weren't breaking a profit, but it seems to me as if Donald Trump, they're the same. Elon Musk has created the perfect cycle, the perfect web to bring Twitter all the way to the ground. And then the real question is, how can he salvage some of his investment and the best interest of his investors, even if he destroys Twitter? Because at this juncture, it looks like that's exactly what he's trying to do. We'll be back right after this.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions. Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Over the past 18 months, Starbucks has waged the most aggressive and illegal union-busting campaign in the modern history of our country. That union-busting campaign has been led by Howard Schultz, the multi-billionaire founder and director of Starbucks, who is with us this morning only under the threat of subpoena. Let us be clear about the nature of Starbucks' vicious anti-union efforts. The National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, has filed over 80 complaints against Starbucks for violating federal labor law. There have been over 500 unfair labor practice charges lodged against the company, and judges have found that Starbucks broke the law 130 times across 6 states since workers began organizing in the fall of 2021.
That was Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders just a few moments ago as he discussed before the committee hearing that subpoenaed Howard Schultz, the billionaire CEO of Starbucks. The committee was discussing the anti-union efforts on behalf of Starbucks that has fired, in so many baristas who were in charge, the local baristas who were doing the organizing. Howard Schultz has been cracking down tremendously, almost in a fashion more draconian than Amazon was cracking down. We have seen in the aftermath, in the response to all of the activists who have been moving into labor organizing, and this organizing has generated more Starbucks unions than we have ever had, Amazon unions than we have ever had. First time getting these Amazon unions and these Starbucks unions. These CEOs have lost their minds and have just very patently and transparently engaged in anti-union activities. Here is Bernie Sanders asking Howard Schultz about some of that.
Have you ever threatened, coerced, or intimidated a worker for supporting a union?
I've had conversations that could have been interpreted in a different way than I intended. That's up to the person who received the information that I spoke to him about.
Were you informed of or involved in the decision to withhold benefits from Starbucks workers in unionized stores, including higher pay and faster sick time accrual?
My understanding, when we created the benefits in May, 1 month after I returned as CEO, my understanding was under the law, we did not have the unilateral right to provide those benefits to employees who were interested in joining a union.
Am I hearing you say that you were involved in the decision to withhold benefits from Starbucks workers in unionized stores? Is that what I'm hearing?
It was my understanding that we could not provide those benefits under the law.
That's his understanding. Plausible deniability is a hell of a drug. We have a fundamental problem in this country. It's very simple. It is age old. It is, it's rich in theory as much as it is in reality and in practice. I almost said praxis. Capital will always attempt to exploit labor. It's just what it is. It's what people with the wealth do. They want to save every dime they possibly can. And if they can avoid giving benefits to their employees, they most certainly will. If they can avoid letting those employees unionize, they most certainly will. If they can avoid paying those workers a little bit more an hour, they most certainly will. Anything that they can get away with, they will. Because you don't have benevolent capitalists, no more than you have a benevolent emperor. They just don't exist. And so capital is always going to do everything it can to exploit labor. It's just a fundamental reality of nature. You know, they always try to blame the ills of society on human nature, but they never really talk about the ills of society that are caused by capitalism, which is also a part of human nature. The greedy will always try to keep what they have without giving anything they can. That's just what they do. And because of that, it is incumbent upon the federal government to ensure through legislation, through regulation, that these institutions that are rich in capital don't continue to get away with it. But over the years, we have seen all of our regulatory systems just really be reduced to nothing. All we really have now is the fact that Bernie Sanders and some other politicians will make a statement on the international stage, on the national stage. They will call out Howard Schultz for his greed. They will do that. But in terms of actually stopping Starbucks, well, the issue of citation, but does that stop Starbucks from actually engaging in their anti-union behavior? No, they're still firing baristas. They're still alienating the individual stores that did unionize. They're penalizing these people for having the nerve to get the kind of economic power that's necessary to stand toe-to-toe with these corporate oligarchs, these overlords who sit back in the wealth and the comfort of all of our labor and then turn around and tell us there's nothing they can do about it. There's nothing they can do to help us. We can't unionize. Why would you unionize? Don't you trust your managers? Aren't we one big family here? Patrons, Stay tuned. There's a lot more to go. Everyone else, patreon.com/the BPD show, or we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.